Meditation, being aware of your consciousness, is more natural than breathing. Okay? What you have to do is get out of the way of it. It's not that you have to do something special to meditate. What you have to do is to get yourself out of the way of letting yourself be in that larger aware space. That larger aware space is just natural to you. That's where you should live all the time. So it's all about what you have to stop doing, right? So meditation is about not doing. It's not about doing. It's not another technique to learn with your intellect to force yourself to be in a meditation state. That's not it. It's about getting rid of all the stuff that keeps you out of that awareness, keeps you out of that meditation state. That meditation state's just you. That's just your consciousness. That's where you live. That's where you belong. And all you have to do is get out of the way, and you can be there. But these are the important clues. Fear nothing. Fear will keep you out of the larger reality probably more than anything else. Fear nothing. So you jump into that out-of-body state, or you get out in another reality, and the first thing you see is a big monster with fangs, right? And he's going to eat you. Okay, fear nothing. Say hello to him. Ask him how his day's been going. Send him a little love, and then go on about your business. The fear is there for a reason. The reason is you're fearful. It's you. The fear is inside of you, and you express it. You see it. It comes out. In an out-of-body reality frame, or in a larger consciousness frame, often what you see is what you are. So if you are fearful, you will find fearful things there. Okay. So first you have to get rid of the fear. Another way that fear is used is because that's true, that what you see is what you are. You see a lot of your fear. You run into it. But here you can sweep it under the rug. Here you can ignore it. Here you can just let it make knots on your back and in your neck and give you stress and tension, but not have to actually deal with it, because we're good at pushing things out of our intellect, right? But there you can't, because when you're there, you act at the being level. You are who you are. And if you have that fear, there it is. It's right up front and in your face in something you have to deal with. So if you have a lot of fear, every time you get into this larger reality system, you end up with problems if you're just kind of there on your own. Now, if you get there through a structured thing, like if you get there because you listen to this tape and it takes you to this place and this place and you see this thing, then you probably won't have to, because you've got this buttoned-down structure. I'm talking about you just get into it unstructured, on your own. There you are. Okay, so get rid of your fear. The second thing about fear is that because fear will be such a problem for you if you get into these reality frames, often you will be given tests, fear tests, if you will, to see if you're ready to get into this system. Because you don't want to be wandering around in places that you're not ready to be in. You just end up, fear can get into a bad cycle. Because you feared something, then you'll be looking for it next time. In other words, your fear will grow. And that fear can just spiral into the point where you're terrified and can't do anything. You just get so wadded up with your fear now that it's a big problem in your life. So, that's a de-evolutionary process with all that fear. You start going backwards. You start to lose sight of the love and the hope and the joy, and all that stuff starts to disappear because you're consumed with so much fear. So you have to let that fear go. And these places will put you nose to nose with your fear. So if you're not ready for these places, you shouldn't go there until you're ready. So if you want to go there, but you have problems, well, first thing you should do is get ready, right? Learn how to get ready to go there. How do you get ready? Get rid of that ego. Get rid of that fear. Get rid of those expectations. Get rid of those beliefs. Get rid of all that stuff. And when you offload all that stuff, now you're ready. And now the trip will be much easier. So the system will sometimes test your fear to see whether or not you're ready. And if you're not ready, they'll just chase you back out of that system. So people get out of body. I had one person said, he says, I can get out of body, but every time I do, these two guys come up and they beat me up. Push me back into my body. And he said, it happens all the time. He says, what is it? Is this place that violent, that if you show up, some thugs come around and beat you up? And I said, well, that's your fear. That's your fear that you're dealing with. I said, you need to let go of that fear. And you need to interact with those two guys, and you need to not fight with them. You need to have an interaction. You need to not deal with them with fear. Okay? Because as soon as you see them coming, your fear blossoms. And that's why they keep coming. If when you see them, your fear doesn't blossom, then, okay, you passed that test. They can disappear. They can go home, you see. So it's just, if you think of it, it's like the guard at the door. You can't pass because you don't qualify. You have too much fear. So that happens a lot for individuals getting into the larger consciousness system. They run all this scary stuff. And the scary stuff is often just given to them. What a nice gift, right? You get a monster with fangs. It's given to you just to see how you react to it. If you're fearful, then you're not ready. And you'll have all sorts of fear. A lot of your dreams tend to be fear tests. Because remember we said fear is the opposite of love? Fear is what de-evolves you. Love is what evolves you. So getting rid of fear is a real core thing as far as growing up. That's a real core thing. So a lot of your dreaming has to do with helping you get rid of fear. You get put into situations where you have a lot of anxiety, where things aren't going right, where nobody will listen to you, where there's monsters or people are chasing you. It's all fear stuff. It's all to help you. You're practicing learning to deal with fear. So while you're dreaming, most of us spend probably about 50% of our dreams we're in fear, we're in fear 101, right? And we get these scary things and issues, things that make us feel bad, make us feel unloved, make us feel unwanted, people don't treat us well. Well, all that's fear. Ego is a subset of fear. We have all these problems, emotional problems. Fear isn't just monsters with fangs. Fear is people don't like you. Well, that's a fear. You're not competent. You're not up to the task. You fail to deliver. All these things are fears. This is what a lot of your dreams are about. Lessons. Okay, so that's don't do. What you don't do in order to allow yourself to be who you are. That's meditation. All right, now what are the experiences that we can get into? Well, there's out of body. And this is always a little joke I like to say that there's an OOBE, which is an out-of-body experience, but that is really an unfortunate misnomer because you're not getting out of your body. See, the whole concept of out of your body is body-centered, right? I have this body. My consciousness is in my body. Your consciousness is in your body. You don't even have a body. This is a virtual body. You're just consciousness. But you think, I'm a body, my consciousness is in my body, and I got to get my consciousness out of my body. Okay, where is your consciousness? Oh, it lives in my brain. There's a little house, it has a little house in there, right? Little kitchen, nice little living room, big TV. And consciousness lives in there, and it has to get out of my body. Well, why is it that people end up in what Bob Monroe called locale one, which is you get out of body and it's kind of this environment, right? You're kind of in the near Earth environment. You can see things, you can remote view, you can do that kind of stuff because you're in this an environment that is parallel to this physical reality. Well, why do people first get out of body? But they're lying there in their bed, and they're trying to, raise their out-of-body arm. They're trying to roll out. They're trying to do all this stuff to get out of their body. You see how wrong that is? You're not in your body. Don't make it body-centered. It doesn't have anything to do with your body. You don't have to get out of your body. You're already out of your body. Your consciousness. You see, what you need to do is get into your consciousness. So people, because they think their consciousness is in their body, and their body is really who they are, whether they think that intellectually or not, that's at the cultural level. Then when they get out of their body, what's the first thing they're going to have to see? Their room, where their bed is, right? Their bedroom, their body. Of course that's what they'd have to see first because they just got out of their body. So that places them in their bedroom or wherever it is they are, whether if they're sitting in a chair in a living room, what they're going to see is wherever their body is. Well, that's just because they have the belief that they're getting out of their body, and that's then their intent says, okay, I'm getting out of my body. I want to see this reality from my out of the body state, which is obviously right, 2-3 feet away from my body. So then they go up to the database and they get the data about their bedroom. Well, that's an exciting trip, isn't it? I get to see my bedroom. Wow, I've really been out there exploring, But that's because they believe that they're getting out of their body. They're body-centered. You're not. Instead, it should be called an OOME. What you're doing is getting out of your mind. But out of your mind has other connotations that we don't want to associate with what it is we're talking about. So unfortunately, others have already laid claim to that phrase of out of your mind, and we can't use it now because they did. But basically what you're doing is you're just focusing your intent to a different data stream. That's all you're doing. You're just consciousness. And now instead of doing the sensory perception thing and here in this virtual reality, you're just taking your consciousness and opening it up to a different reality frame. You don't have to get out of your body. The body's irrelevant. The body's just virtual. The brain's just virtual. All of that's data, you see. But because we believe it, we have to roll out of our body because somehow we're trapped in here, right? We're trapped. Our out of the body's trapped in this flesh somehow. We got to roll it out. Okay, well, why does anybody think that it was in our body in the first place? Because that's our cultural beliefs, right? That's a belief. We start with that belief. Because, we're us. This body, this is us. And if there's anything else of us, then it's got to be in here. So you see, that's not a good direction to come from. So you're already starting to make your out-of-the-body process difficult by believing that it has something to do with your body. There's nothing to do with your body at all. You don't have to roll out. Rolling out, raising that, you have all these techniques, right? You roll out, you raise this, you look at this non-physical arm, it raises up, you look at it and you go, oh damn, that's my physical arm, put it back. That didn't work right. We have all these techniques that we use. They're just tools. They're tools to help you focus your intent. And see, people get hung up on the tool. If they can't first see that invisible, wavy, ghost-like arm come up, then they're not doing it right. That's because they're body-centered. You see, they're trapped. If they can't, when they get out, look back and see their body sleeping, then they're not doing it right. They must be doing something else. So I just must be imagining this because I didn't see my body first and, whatever. Because that's the way it's written in this book. That's the way they do it. And if I don't do it like that, you see, what you're doing is trying to have somebody else's experience. You're trying to use somebody else's tools. Somebody else had this tool that they could switch their intent in their data stream if they just imagined that they rolled out. See? And that tool worked for them. Great. So it was a good metaphor for them. It was a good ritual for them. They resonated with that, and that's how they get out of body, and they write that in the book, and from then on, everybody's going like this trying to get out of body. You see? It's just their tool. Get your own tool. You don't have to get out of body and end up in your bedroom. You see? Your consciousness is not located in your bedroom or in your body. So those are some things. Okay, what can you do when you get in this state? There's lucid dreams, and a lot of times, lucid dreams, night dreams, day dreams, all sorts of dreams. A lot of times people say, well, what's the difference between an out-of-body and a lucid dream? Well, there really is no difference other than your beliefs and how you approached the process you used to get your data stream changed from this physical reality to some other reality. It's like, what tool are you using and how do you apply that tool? That's the difference. There really isn't any difference. You see? So a lucid dream, you go to sleep first, you get in a dream and you go, oh, I'm dreaming. You become aware, you become lucid that you're dreaming, and after that you take charge of it. And at the being level you can say, well, now that I know I'm dreaming, I'd like to go do something, go somewhere, explore, heal somebody, go remote view, get some data. Talk to someone, ask some questions. So now you can, that's kind of your launching place, right? Well, if you're doing the outer body, then you don't go to sleep first. You just get into that state to where you take control and you're out there. It's the same thing, except when you do it from the dream world, you have the beliefs that now you're in the dream world, so then those beliefs color what you see and what you can do, because now you're doing this dream thing, and if you're in the other world, then you're out of body, and it's just all your beliefs. It's your expectations define your limitations. If you expect that it's going to be like this, that's what you get, because that's what your intent. Your intent is the thing that tells you where you go, what you do, and how you do it. And if that intent has a belief and an expectation is just a belief, then there's your limitation. That's what you'll do, and you won't do any more than that, because you have a belief that that's the way it is. You'll have a belief that you have to see that ghost arm come up, or you're not doing it right. You can't get out, and people will try that, and they say, it just doesn't work for me, I can't do it. Well, that's because they're trying to have somebody else's experience and use somebody else's tools. It doesn't work well for them. Okay. Precognitive dreams, that's just switching that consciousness into the probable future database. Just like the historical database. It's a place you can go. Remote viewing, that's just collecting data out of that database. And you can collect that data from the probable future, historical past, or the non-historical past, the non-actualized data. Matter of fact, some of the experiments they're doing now in remote viewing is they tell a remote viewer, all right, go remote view the target. And the remote viewer goes off, and he comes back and he draws a picture of what he sees at his target. But you know what? They haven't even selected the target yet. Now, after he comes back and gives his result, then they go in and take a random number generator to generate a number between, let's say, 1 and 200, and if it gets number 56, they pull out envelope number 56, and that's his target. And this is a week later after he's already done it, and it matches. Okay. It's a probabilistic statistical reality. That's the way it works. It's not a problem. There was a probable future, a probable reality. And you're able to do those sort of things. It's just like, you burn the envelopes that have the detection data in it, and what happens? You get a diffraction pattern. You don't burn the envelopes, and then you get just 2 spots of light. But hey, all the data was taken at the same time. What was on that screen should have all be the same. Now we're changing it in the future. That's the way our reality works. It's the same way. So you can remote view anywhere. People have the idea that remote viewing is only going to a place and looking around, because that's kind of what most people talk about. But remote viewing can be anything. You can remote view cells in somebody's body. You can remote view into the future probable. You can remote view into historical things, present things. So you don't have to just go look at someplace on this planet. Remote viewing can be anything. It's just a technique to focus your intent on the data in the database. The data you get is the data that you intend to get, and you get it in the form you want. So if you say, well, the data I intend to get is somewhere on the surface of this earth, and I want it in the form of a picture, okay? And I want to go to the place that has the coordinates in this envelope. All right, now that's your intent. Well, that's the data you get, because that's your intent. You see? Now the remote viewing protocol typically now is like triple blind. They take a bunch of targets, they put them in envelopes. The envelopes are all unmarked. They mix up the envelopes. Nobody knows what's in what envelope. They pick out an envelope one day, and they walk into the room, and the remote viewer's lying down there in a bed or on a couch or sitting in a chair or whatever. If he's like me, he's standing on one foot in the corner, right? He's doing something, and anyway, he's going to remote view, and the guy walks in with the envelope, and nobody opens the envelope. The guy who's instructing the remote viewer doesn't open the envelope and read off the coordinates like I did to you, yesterday. You just hold the envelope, and it's closed, and they say, here's your target, go. Okay, give him no information. Why do they give him no information? Because he's better if you give him no information. If you give him information, he doesn't do it as well. Because if you give him information, his intellect's going, trying to figure it out, trying to judge it. If you give him nothing to go on, then even if his intellect doesn't sit down and shut up. It's got no data. You see, it's got no information to crank on. So you actually do better. So you can get better results that way. So that's typically the way remote viewing is done. And then later he does his thing, and then they open the envelope, and then they look at the coordinates, and then they find out where it was, and then they see if it matches. You see? So the less data you have sometimes, the better. Or the remote viewing can be anything. It's just another technique for accessing the database. So you can go into a meditation state, you can get into that point consciousness, and then you can go access the database. Query it with your intent. Find out what you want to find out, go where you want to go, see what you want to see, whatever. You just access the database. Now, if you want to call that a lucid dream, you want to call that an out-of-body experience, you want to call that remote viewing, it really doesn't make much difference. You're just accessing the database. When you look at somebody and you look at their aura and you see that, you can look at their spiritual aura, see their level of spiritual attainment. You can look at their emotional aura. You can see, their emotional state at the time. You can look at their health aura. All these things is different specifications for your intent. I intend to see the health data. I intend to see the spiritual data. I intend to see the emotional data. You can intend pretty much anything you want, and you get it. Okay, so you do that intent, you get the data, and the way that your output format for that data is an image. And because you're talking about Susie, then you see this nice little image about Susie and the colors and all that sort of thing, but you don't have to be seeing that around Susie. You could see it, you can just see the image. It doesn't have to be an egg shaped around a person. It could be a square, whatever it is you want. But because we believe that it has to do with Susie and it's her aura and it belongs to her, that it's somehow attached to her body, right? So because everything, we always start with the body because to us the body is the key thing. So that aura then has to be attached to the body. So if you're going to see it, you have to look at the body. And then you find out that, you don't really have to look at the body. You can look at somebody in a photograph and you can see their aura right there in a photograph, right? Well, it must not be attached to the body then, unless it's also attached to the photograph. And then you go, it must be attached to the photograph. I don't want anybody to ever take a photograph of me because then they're capturing some of my energy, right? That was a belief. Some people didn't want to have their photographs taken. Well, you see how you get into mistaken thoughts because you don't really understand how reality works, and it's easy to do that. So yes, you can look at a photograph and you can see an aura, but you don't need to look at a photograph either. You can just think of that person. And you can have it displayed any way you want. You're just accessing data. That aura doesn't belong to that body. The aura is just data. It's information about that person. You can display it any way you want. Now, I think some of the younger people that I've talked to, because they are so into their computer games and whatever, instead of seeing things on bodies or seeing things on, whatever, they see things on monitors. They tend to bring up the image of a monitor, and everything they see is an image rendered on a monitor, on a screen, because that's how they see the world, is on a monitor for the most part. That's natural. That's more natural to them. That's a metaphor for them that works. 100 years ago, that wouldn't have worked. It would have not made any sense.